You ready?
Yep. Welcome to episode 104 of Crosstown Cardboard. We're calling this one the Fluff and Stuff, which is a phrase that was coined, not yet trademarked, by Crosstown Cardboard, but it was, I believe, invented here, at least in the form of the hobby, because it involves, well, I'll let my partner explain it. That's Craig at New York City Sports Cards, the math teacher, the soccer coach in New York City. I'm Carmine at Carmine's Cards, the sports storyteller down here in Greenville, South Carolina, but originally from Westchester County, New York. And if you've been following Crosstown Cardboard, you've heard the phrase before in the last few months, the fluff and stuff. And thank you for following along our journey. If you haven't yet and you want to continue following into season 3, we're now in the triple digits of episodes. You can like and subscribe on YouTube and anywhere you listen to podcasts. Hit the bell notification. You'll find out whenever we drop anything new. And the fluff and stuff is something that we've been talking about quite a bit because it's been a move that Craig's been making pretty frequently. So in this episode, we're going to break down exactly what that consolidation looks like when you move your fluff into stuff, using examples from Craig because we like to add anything we can to the hobby. But with this, using Craig's expertise as a math teacher and in the hobby, we figured that would be a great way to give something to the hobby of here's the breakdown of using the fluff and stuff deal in a trade to get something that you might like or be able to sell more effectively. So Craig, but what exactly in your own words is the fluff and stuff since you've kind of coined that phrase here on the show?
All right. So basically, we're going to get into concrete examples of cards I've acquired through consolidating, right? That's pretty much what this comes down to. But this idea of fluff and stuff is you're taking, how do we define fluff? Basically, cards you don't want. Fair to say?
Mm-hmm.
Now, fluff may have different tiers to it because if you're someone who deals in $10,000 cards, to you, the fluff may be the $400 to $500 cards. For me, more my wheelhouse of cards I'm really trying to PC is maybe that $500 to, let's just say, $2,000 range. So then for me, or even less, honestly, because a couple cards I have here are maybe like $200 to $300. So then what is your fluff in that case? It's those $5 to, let's say, $100 cards that I don't have use for. They don't fit my personal collection. I'm going to have a difficult time selling them. So how can I take that fluff and move it into a card and consolidate into something I really want? So I have 3 examples here of 3 super cool PC cards that I have that I'm into for a fantastic price because of my ability to consolidate.
What's the first example of the fluff and stuff that you want to go through?
Before we get into them, I actually want to share a card with you I just bought.
Oh, okay. Go for it.
Real quick, because on the heels of, post-national, not knowing what we're going to do, last episode I spoke about feeling like I'm going to take some time off and not buy just because I won't have the time to do so. But then if you remember early on in the show, we ran into Jacob, who is Star Sports Cards 23.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one who I was talking to about my Jim Thorpe jersey card. He's the one who had purchased that Babe Ruth autographed baseball.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I remember him. Yep.
So one of the things I really wanted to look for at National were some Jackie Robinson cards because Jackie Robinson had 5 Topps cards, 1952, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I already owned the 1953 and the 55, so I'm missing the even years. 52 is tough because that's the Mantle rookie year. You want a Jackie Robinson that one year, even in a PSA 1, you're looking at $2,000 to $3,000.
Wow,
so
really?
I will have to take my time with that one. But Jacob, Star Sports Cards 23, posted on his Instagram story a 1954 Jackie Robinson in a PSA 1. I said, that is something that I am looking for. I didn't get a chance to find it at National. He said, I will let you know once I get it in. So the moment he got it in the mail, Jacob messaged me, and he offered me such a fair price. And I literally said to him, it's such a fair price. I'm not even going to counter. Deal.
Nice.
So why do I want this? Because I want all 5 Jackie Robinson cards, all PSA grades. I now have 3 out of the 5. And he sold me a 1954 Jackie Robinson in a Steve Lofts special PSA 1. Now you could see
the Steve Lofts special, the all-national first team.
And you could see the card is pretty creased, especially over his face, but I don't care. I'm just trying to build the Topps Jackie Robinson run from the 5 years. So to get this in a PSA 1 at $170 shipped, no brainer to me. So I'm happy to check that one off my box. I still need the tail ends, the 52 and the 56. So hopefully I can get that done.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And the reason, just if you haven't listened to the National 101 episode, the reason that's the Steve Loff special is because Steve is a PSA 1 collector. And so with that being a PSA 1, Steve might be offering you now, Craig, on that Jackie Robinson. I mean, he's a PSA 1. I don't know if he has that particular PSA 1 in his collection.
Steve, you're going to have to pry this one out of my hands, as I need this for the Topps print run.
No, I'm happy you're continuing the Jackie Robinson run. Craig, before we get into your fluff and stuff, do you want to mention the deal that apparently we assisted in happening between two all-national members who made our team? I mean, between Steve and
yeah, why don't you tell it? You're the sports storyteller.
Well, all I know is that apparently because we had put Steve Loff on the all-national first team all-national, then we had honorable mention all-national with Dom, our buddy, the Card Father 13. And what exactly happened? They got wind of each other and did a deal with a Jim Brown rookie auto that was signed by Jim Brown, obviously in person because they didn't make the autos and packs back then. But the Jim Brown rookie autograph with the Hall of Fame inscription went from Dom to Steve. And how did they find out about each other? Oh, because they knew about each other through us putting them on the all-national team? Is that what it was?
Steve heard Dom in the national episode 100 vlog mention he's looking for a Jim Brown rookie. So I think he maybe reached out to Dom because he had the 1958 Topps Jim Brown autograph with the Hall of Fame inscription. So Dom traded him half cash, half trade to Steve. Steve is a hobby hustler. He keeps things moving. So Steve said himself, he's happy to know that the card is going into someone who's really going to collect it. So Dom's got a nice Jim Brown autograph on-card rookie card. Crazy. And Steve got cash and cards in return that he's going to continue to use to flip and consolidate and do his thing. So everyone was happy, and that connection was created through our content. So that's awesome.
That's great. Okay, so Dom was the one who got the Jim Brown 58 Topps rookie auto with the Hall of Fame inscription. That's now in Dom's PC.
Correct.
Okay, great. Good for him being from Cleveland Browns. That's awesome. Coming full circle there for him. Great. Glad we could assist that.
Yeah. So that worked out really well. But so Dom was able to consolidate into that card. Speaking of consolidation, shall we get into our examples?
Yeah, let's hit it. What's the first?
Tell me you have some too. This can't all be about me.
No, I want this to be, because you're the master of the fluff and stuff, bringing all these cards recently, even at the National, to Jake from Bleecker. You consolidated, what was that, a 14 into 1 trade? I mean, you've done it at different card stores in Denver. You've done it in New York City. So, I've done it a few times, but never, I mean, you're the master of it. That's why I want this to be mainly focused on you. And then if I can add anything from what I've done with cards, I'll gladly do that. But let's make this. You're the master of the fluff and stuff.
So the whole goal of the fluff and stuff or consolidating is what? To try to not only work your way up into a cool card that you like, but to work your way into it at a discounted price, let's say.
Yeah, and work your way out of the fluff that you are going to have a tougher time selling.
Correct. So here's a perfect example. Now, I keep everything in a spreadsheet, so I know what I'm into all these cards for. So here is roughly a $200 card. If I wanted to sell this right now, I can get $150 all day long. That I am into for $80.
Wow.
Right. It's the 2005 Absolute Jim Thorpe game-worn jersey, numbered out of 250. So not the rarest card in the world, but this was just a set that I liked. It's a Jim Thorpe game-worn jersey card. Just super cool. Kidding me? From 05 Absolute.
Very
now,
cool.
How was I able to get into a $200 card for $80? I did partial trade and I did some cash. So I ended up trading 2 cards for this, plus $40. The 2 cards that I traded were an Alex Rodriguez, Albert Pujols, Manny Ramirez, triple threads jersey out of 18, and an Ernie Banks triple threads jersey numbered out of 9. Now, those 2 cards I was into for $40, but I was able to get $140 trade value out of them. So that the difference there of the trade value that I was able to get versus what I was into them for, that difference is how I was able to get this card at a discounted rate.
But how are you able to make up such a big difference from what you paid for those cards to the trade value you end up getting?
I'm so glad you asked. So when I went to Royal Collectibles in Queens a couple months ago, my childhood LCS, they had a bunch of cards out on display, and I found some cards that I thought were undervalued, including an Isaac Bruce 2000 finest autograph refractor. Now, not every card shop is going to label every single card perfectly. You're going to find steals here and there. That just comes from years of experience. So I was able to sell that Isaac Bruce, which they had priced at 40. I was able to sell that at 80. So when I purchased the triple threads, triple jersey, the Ernie Banks triple threads jersey, there was like another baseball card. There was the Isaac Bruce autograph, and there was the Joe Montana helmet. Because I was just able to take that one Isaac Bruce that I felt was undervalued and flip that one card into profit, I was now into the rest of the cards for less, including the 2 triple threads. So now I'm into these 2 cards at a great value that I know I can get more trade value out of. So it's like one step led to another that led to another. So here I am playing with these 2 trade assets that the card shop happily accepted for their trade value that I was into for way less. So I was able to take those 2 cards plus cash and get into this Jim Thorpe PC card at a very reasonable price. So where does the skill come in that allowed me to do that? It ultimately started from finding singles at Royal Collectibles that I just knew, plus I looked up, that were undervalued and underpriced that I was able to sell. So I was into everything else for less.
Right. And you roll in, like, what I find interesting about the way you go about it, because when I buy, let's say I buy 3 cards at once, I'll have those cards priced out of each one of what I'm into it for. Like let's say, for example, this Bill Clinton cut auto, the Tony Hawk auto that I got, which was Allen and Ginter, and the Cheryl Swoops rookie auto that I got. I paid over $200 for those 3, but I'll section it off for which, how much I'm into each one for, because I want it to be reasonable for each one. So let's say, just off the top of my head, Tony Hawk 90, Bill Clinton 100, Cheryl Swoops 40. I don't roll that profit into the other cards. I just treat each sale as its individual. So if I sell Cheryl Swoops for 60, that doesn't decrease what I'm into the other cards in the deal for in my head. Just because that helps me like section off each card and try to see if I can make a profit on each individual one rather than lumping it all into the whole deal. But why do you choose to roll in your profit into other cards rather than like making each card its individual deal? Because that's what I've noticed from what
It's a good point. It's a good point, and I see both sides to it. I like to look at it as if I buy a lot of cards, I'll try to sell things at reasonable prices. So by the time I piece things off, and that's how I did that with this collection, was you could look at it as, here's what I'm into for everything that's left. Here's what I'm into it for. And I think that maybe sometimes gives you the opportunity to maybe trade or sell things at a good value. I don't know. I don't always do it that way. If I'm buying single cards, yes, obviously I'm tracking that one price. If I'm buying multiple cards, I think of it as the goal is to sell certain things until you get to the point where everything else is house money, is how I look at it.
Okay. Yeah. And that's just an interesting point, because you could do things different ways. Like you kind of put the cards, you do it like deal by deal. How did you buy that deal? And then how did you sell that deal, and rolling in each individual card that's involved in that one deal, keeping that as its own little entity rather than on a card by card basis, which I don't do, but that doesn't mean one way's right and one way's wrong. It's just two different ways of looking at it.
Sure. But ultimately it is the same thing, because the way like my spreadsheet works, it's the same amount of profit, money coming in, money going out.
Right.
Just a
Right.
different way of looking at it.
The end goal will be the same. Yeah. It's just getting there in different ways.
Do you have an example of consolidation? If not, I can get to my next one.
No, I think you should keep it rolling because because that was kind of a consolidation by different deals. I'm interested in the getting into the mind of how you go about doing like the 14-1 card, or the thing that really started the fluff and stuff of like, 10 plus cards into 1 or 2, like
This one right here.
yeah. Okay. So what do we have
great.
here?
This was like a 25 for 1 type card.
Yeah, I remember you talked about that briefly, but
did.
I'm interested to find out more.
So this is 2010 Panini Gold Standard, Stephen Curry, game worn, 3-color patch, numbered out of 25. I think this is a PC card for me because that patch is probably from his rookie year. And Gold Standard is such a nice set. It looks nice with the Warriors uniform. It's Steph Curry. It's chunky. You can't really go wrong.
And it's 3-color, which you're a big fan of.
Big fan. And this was a trade with a podcast listener, Adam, Mulligan Cards.
Yes, I talked to Adam. Good guy.
Great guy. So what did this trade exactly look like? On my spreadsheet, I have it labeled as, let's see, because it was pretty complex.
Okay. If you want to share the screen, I can.
I don't even have the whole screen, but Acuna jersey plus Eifert patch plus 2 Grizzlies patches plus Dice K patch plus big lot of cards for Steph Curry patch.
You just said big lot of cards?
Yes. Let's see if I can pull up the picture. Now, for this example, the way I was able to consolidate 20 plus cards into one, this Steph Curry right here, puts me into that card for an unbelievable price of, shoot. Cheat. We're good. Don't worry.
Wow. What's suspense here, bro? Oh my gosh.
$90.
$90.
And this is probably a $250 to $300 card. Now, Adam, I knew, purchased this card on eBay for around $250. So I said, Adam, I know what you bought this card for. I can give you like $400 plus in trade value.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it was stuff from the collection that I had bought out. And as I'm selling more and more stuff from my collection, anything in that collection that was like maybe $20 and less, I didn't even include that in my cost. I included that as house money. So whereas I'm giving Adam a whole bunch of cards here, something, a $10 jersey card, there were like some Dwayne Wade game-worn jersey cards, maybe $15, $20 cards. I'm able to look at that from my finances as if I'm into it for $0, but I'm giving him $10 to $15 trade value. Here was the final spreadsheet, by the way.
Oh my gosh.
A lot of cards here. So if I remember correctly, I gave him roughly $400 plus of trade value. Why did that work for Adam? Because he sets up at shows and he has inventory and he has stuff out at a showcase. And I know what he got this for. So it's the perfect middle ground where I'm able to give him $400 plus worth of stuff for a card that he's into for $250, not even. But for me, I'm into that for almost nothing because it was all just stuff from that buyout collection.
Yeah.
So that's how I was able to get into this for $90. Now, I'm going to call myself out here, and I already texted Adam this. This is just us taking personal accountability. I had not shipped that many cards at once in a long time. And instead of taking my time and going to the LCS and getting proper supplies, I kind of did a makeshift shipping job that I wasn't proud of. And I even texted Adam like not that long ago. I'm like, yo, this has been heavy on my mind for a while. Like, I know I didn't do my best job at shipping those cards to you. But lesson learned. I'm always going to do better. The cards were protected, but like there were some cards in penny sleeves. It wasn't a clean shipping job on my part. And I recognize that and I take accountability for that. But he got his 25 plus cards safely. I got a nice Stephen Curry card. He's got a whole bunch of inventory to work with. And I've got a dope PC card that I'm into for under 100. That's probably worth triple that.
Yeah. That's a really nice, now that's a fluff and stuff right there. Very well done with that. So Craig, if somebody's trying to learn, and I know it was a unique situation with you buying out the collection that we also talked about on the podcast a couple months ago. And that was the only time that you've really had the opportunity to buy out a collection of cards that you liked that weren't really fluff. I mean, it was a lot of
A
things
lot
that
of really
were
sweet stuff. Yeah.
it was quality fluff, if you want to put it like that. But what is your method of acquiring this fluff that you then turn into stuff that you're able to trade at a good value for things you actually like?
I think the key is I'm not like the biggest risk taker when it comes to cards. I don't feel comfortable dishing out 4 or 5 figures of like single cards. I know plenty of people do. That's just not my game. I'm a little more risk averse. So my method is if you could find a nice game worn patch, an old numbered card or a fractor, just something that maybe is priced at 5 to 10, but is valued at 15 to 25, those little $5, $10 profits over the course of 5, 10, 15, 20 cards really adds up. Because all of a sudden you could trade cards that have a value at 400, and let's say, hey, here's $400 worth of cards. Would you give me $300 trade value out of it? But I'm really into it for 200 because I just have an eye for looking for that good stuff. The store gets what they want, or the person gets what they want, because their margin is the difference between 300 and 400. And I do all right because my margin is the difference between 200 and 300. So it's just, it really does come from years and years of experience and knowing the sets and knowing what to look for and knowing what's a steal. But it's what's worked for me.
Is that what we were doing? I mean, I know that's kind of what I was doing, but I assume you were doing the same thing when we were digging through the value boxes at the very end of the National with sports card machines, looking at the Knicks patches and different jersey cards. Is that what you're doing, is acquiring the fluff that you can take from, okay, it's in the $5 bargain bin. If I get 10 of those, it adds up to 50, but I'll get them for 40. And then maybe they're a little underpriced, so they're like $8 to $10 a piece instead of $5 a piece. So I spent $40, but I think I can flip these or trade these as fluff at like a $75 value. Is that like kind of a mindset there?
Yeah. With our example, no, because we were looking at New York Knicks stuff and that was all personal collection. But
Okay.
Mike Bev, Celtics, he had the really nice value bins. Here's a perfect example. I ended up buying a bunch of cards for him that I was probably ultimately into for like $10 a piece. One of them was this 2000 Pacific Crown Royale limited series, Randy Moss, numbered out of 144. I'm like, okay, Randy Moss, third year, numbered out of 144. Pacific, not really a brand you see a lot, but a brand I remember. For $10, this seems like low risk. There just happened to be one that sold on eBay a couple days ago and ended at $21.50. So there's a perfect example of something I bought for 10 is worth 20. Ultimately, maybe I can get 15 for it. Maybe I can get 20 for it. But if you extrapolate that times 10 times 20 cards, now you're into a whole lot of lower end cards for a decent price that card shops might be better off using because card shops like new inventory.
Right.
So perfect example of a recent buy that ended up selling for double what I paid. And $10 to $20 over many, many repetitions really adds up and is why I'm able to get cards like these that I love.
Yeah. Good for you. Is it like a patience game too? Is like acquiring this stuff and then putting it together and seeing when the time's right? Because that could be some of the reason why, like, I don't really engage in the fluff and stuff. I love doing trades. Like a 3-for-1 or even like trading down sometimes too. Like I mentioned, months ago with the Kevin Durant immaculate patch auto that I traded out of, and into like 20 cards. So I like doing that both ways, but I don't really do because I don't have, maybe I could do it. I mean, there's really no excuse why I couldn't do it with the local card shops around here if they were able to take in that fluff and turn it into stuff. But it seems like patience is a big part of that game, like slowly finding those deals and acquiring the fluff and then bringing it in like 10, 15, 20 cards at once to the store.
Patience and also putting yourself out there in different opportunities. Like I love Bleecker and I love Alex's MVP, but if I try to go value box digging there every week, I'm going to see the same shit over and over.
Yeah.
So Like that Randy Moss card came from Mike Bev Celtics. The other card came from Sports Cards Machines. I remember I did really good value box hunting when I was I forgot the name of the shop, but it's in Naples, Florida. I went to Sports Nut in New Jersey. So just kind of getting out to different shops, different shows, different areas, and maybe looking through value bins that others haven't had the chance to already, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
Like, hey, that Randy Moss card that I just bought for 10 and you see it on eBay, it sold for 20. I got that on the third day of National. That means there were 3 to 4 full days of National, people sifting through that bin. And even so, things are going to slip through the cracks. And there's a perfect example of one.
What are some qualities that you look for in and you mentioned, game used jersey cards, numbered stuff, but like if you're looking through, and I know it kind of is probably second nature to you because 25 years of being in the hobby, but just a few qualities that if people are listening to or watching Crosstown Cardboard here, they can take in and say, okay, this is what I should look for in the fluff that I might be able to pick up.
2 words. Well, maybe 1 word, hyphenated. Panini.
Okay.
I'll leave you with that.
But like what Panini stuff? Like explain a little bit more if you could.
Upper Deck, Fleer, Tops, basketball, and football. I just think there was a good amount of random insert sets. Like I got a Ron Artest numbered out of 25 from Topps trademark moves. It turns out I know someone who's trying to build that set. So like, what are the chances? Always chunky game-worn jersey cards. A lot of dual and triple game-worn jersey cards that they don't really make as much today. I picked up within our value box digging, like there was a Stephon Marbury Ultimate Collection not 4 color, but 4 pieces of the jerseys for $5-10 all day long. I picked up a Jermaine O'Neal game-worn patch card, also from Mike Bev Celtics for like $10.
Yeah.
Because it was from Upper Deck. I just think that you don't see a lot of that, as much of that stuff anymore. So Topps, Fleer, Upper Deck, Pacific, back when it was like Donruss and playoff, game-worn stuff, autographs, low numbered, because nowadays something being numbered out of 25 doesn't quite hit the same as it did when it was numbered out of 25 back in 2006.
Yeah. Okay.
And I mean, I wish it was a perfect formula. I've been looking at cards weekly for like the past 25 years, so it's just second nature to me at this point.
Yeah.
But hopefully that gives you a few things to look for.
Yeah, I see what you're saying here. And I have a lot more in my value box that when I do set up at shows, I bring. That's probably, hopefully along the same lines of quality fluff. But like this might be something like this Brian Urlacher Fleer Platinum.
Great example.
Patch of Honor. I was thinking this might be from 2003 Fleer. 3-color game-used patch. This might be an example of something that you would look for that you could probably get for, maybe 15 that maybe you can trade in at a $25 value and make, a margin there.
And I have found with finding cool stuff in that 25 or less, usually, worst case, you're going to break even.
Yeah. You can find some cool rookies too.
Oh, like another thing I should have mentioned is raw cards.
Okay.
Like I'm not necessarily looking for the old graded stuff, but old raw. It's what's worked for me.
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. So that was your second example. Do you have a third?
I do. And this was the most recent. This was from National. It's how I got my George Mikan.
Ah, okay. Yes.
Shout out to Porzingis Collector on Instagram. Also his eBay name. That's where I got this from. He is a Denver native. And he allowed me to trade into that George Mikan. Not as much of a fluff and stuff, but he had the George Mikan 3-color game worn priced at $600. So I traded. Here's the trade. It was 5 Broncos game worn jersey cards, which I got. And this is what I mean about fluff and stuff. I bought those 5 cards for $100 and I traded them at $100. We broke even.
Okay.
Jerry Rice. I think we had that valued around $65, $75, which is exactly what I paid. But where I was able to take a little discount on the card was the Pat Ewing, Sean Kemp dual autograph that I picked up for $125, but he gave me $200 trade value. Plus I threw in some cash.
Mhm.
So because of that difference in that $75, that was my discount on this card. So it was just a matter of finding one card in the cards that I was trading that I was
Yeah.
able to get more trade value than I'm into it for. So ultimately, I'm into this for 510. He had it priced at 600. Given the rarity of the card, I think that's a pretty reasonable deal.
Yeah, that's a great point too, because it doesn't always have to be like every because and we've talked about our losses, somewhat here, or our mistakes, like especially in the national halftime show. Shout out to Lamine Yamal and David Ortiz for our two biggest flops that we had during our national halftime show episode that we recorded in Cleveland at the National. So I think that's an important point too, because sometimes you can move stuff that's not a big profit, it's not a big margin, or maybe one out of the 10 cards you're into for a little bit less than the trade value you're getting. But sometimes it's just getting rid of the stale fluff and turning it into new inventory that kind of refreshes what you have to deal with. It's not always like a major win every time you do a fluff and stuff.
Yeah, sometimes you also just get sick of your inventory and it's fun to shuffle it up a bit. So you do what you got to do, and maybe you trade things. And every example we've given has not been a fluff and stuff, more like a fluff and one card, one thing,
Fluff and one.
fluff and one. But there are examples where you maybe have a whole lot of 50 or some cards and you trade that up into 4 or 5 cards.
Yeah.
They're not PC, but then you could use those 4 or 5 cards to trade it to something you really like. It's just a never-ending game. I love it.
It is. It's a different element of the game, which is why I thought it was pretty cool for us to really dive into it, especially since you're very skilled at doing this kind of thing. When you're looking for cards that are a little bit higher value, like that Sean Kemp and Patrick Ewing dual in-person auto in a PSA slab, how do you go about getting it at 125 price and then getting a $200 value? Like, how do you look at those opportunities when it's not the bargain bin fluff, but it's like, at least $100 and more stuff that you think you can make a difference there?
By the way, he later listed that card on eBay and sold it for $400.
Oh my gosh.
Listen, hey, if you're the one setting up at National, spending the money and the time and the effort to do so, take your profits. Go for it. All good.
Wow.
Like I could have sold it, and if I sold it, I would have made a little something too, sure. But I think having this card makes for a way better collection and a way better story than another $100 to $200 I maybe could have bought something with. But to your point, that exact example, the Patrick Ewing, Sean Kemp, 93-4, it was, I think. Fleer Ultra, dual on-card autograph, PSA certified. I looked up the card to see if there was a sale, and someone bought it on eBay raw for $125. So when I had the chance to buy it slabbed and authenticated for $125, the same price, no brainer.
Yeah.
So someone paid $125 for that card raw, graded it themselves. Somehow it ended up back in my hands for that same price. And I told them straight up, I'm like, here's the sale for $125 raw. Someone later graded it. I'm hoping to get 300 trade value. So when he said 200, I'm like, sure, fine. I understand you got to be a little conservative given your
why didn't you try to say 250 in the middle?
Because what's 75 out of 125? It's a 60% profit.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sure, you could always try to negotiate, but I'm not gonna debate. I'm already doing well at that point. So I don't need to squeeze out every single dollar to get a deal done.
Okay.
At least in this case.
So you wanted to keep him happy in the trade because it was already going. You felt it was going well enough already.
Exactly. And he was a good guy. Shout out to Jay.
Okay. There you go. All right. Something to be said for that with keeping everybody happy in the trade, which clearly he was very happy once he sold it for double what the value was in the trade. That's interesting to try to figure out how much a PSA authentication adds to a raw autographed card by both guys.
Well, it proves it's real. That's a pretty huge factor.
No, I know it's a huge factor, but how many dollars is that huge factor? Like you were saying 300 and took it at 200 trade value. and then it sold for 3.5 times what the raw one sold for because of the PSA authentication from 125 to 400, I wouldn't have thought that it would matter that much, but I would think double would be fair, like, but wow, that's a big, I'm just saying that's an interesting thing to try to figure out.
I could look back at every single deal I've ever made and said, damn, I should have held that one. Damn, I wish I made a little bit more. But in this particular example, I ended up with the card I love. So
yeah, and good. You did well. You did well. You want both people to do well. I'm just saying it's interesting to look at that.
So that's it. 3 examples. Hopefully that provided some steps I take on how to provide really cool or how to get really cool PC cards at reasonable prices. That's a hobby hustle right there.
And you like cards too, before we wrap this episode up, that don't have, and I think we share this too, that don't have very many sales, because if you're going to trade or sell them, yes, it's riskier, but at the same time, you could easily make the argument that it should be worth more than what you got it for because it doesn't have that many sales. Or, like, for example, with the Sean Kemp and Patrick Ewing dual autograph, there's no sales with a PSA authentication. You have a raw sale, but then you can kind of discuss with the person you're selling or trading it with, how much more should that be worth? Like, I have this Bill Goldberg, for example, this card that I spoke about on one of the recent episodes. It's autographed in person, but there's no sales with the Who's Next inscription on it that it also has. So it's like, if you're buying it at a similar price to just the in-person autograph version of this card, then it's totally up for debate how much more the inscription adds to it. You know what I mean? So now we're just discussing something that is totally subjective that you could easily trade for, I don't know, between $30 and $50 more than the regular in-person autograph version without the inscription. So I think just if I was to add something with the Fluff and Stuff or just general trading, you could look for factors that might allow you to make an argument or make a case that the card should be valued more than what you got it for. Like, for example, this A-Rod, right? This is the one that I got from Jake at Bleecker, the trade that we mentioned recently. So there's a PSA 8 sale on this Alex Rodriguez 2016 Topps The Mint autograph, numbered 50 out of 50, with the inscription 3000 Hit Club. There's a PSA 8 sale for $300. So if this is an SGC 9 with a 10 auto, how much is it worth? It's kind of up for debate. Could be $350, could be $400. And if this is the only other sale of the inscription was in a PSA 8, well, it's only sold once. So you could say, if you want this card, and it's in a better grade and it doesn't come up very often, now we might be trading in the 400 range. So I think those factors, similar to your Sean Kemp and Patrick Ewing, that could allow you to make up some margin between what you bought it for and what you sold it for because of the rarity or the different factors, if it has an inscription, or let's say this Jalen Hurts rookie Field Pass auto. This is National Treasures Field Pass Jalen Hurts rookie auto, numbered to 10, that I also got at the National. If there's sales out of 25, there's sales out of 5, but there's not a lot of recent out of 10 sales, then here you are again discussing the trade value or cash value with a multiplier from the out of 5 and out of 25, trying to make a case for what the out of 10 should be worth. So even though there might be comps and sales or different ways to evaluate the value, a lot of it with these more rare cards is up for discussion and interpretation, especially in a trade where people aren't going to be as hard on their stance as they would be if you're selling it for cash. So that's another factor that I would always consider as well. Like, in a trade value, people are intuition of how much the card should be worth because they're not shelling out their own cash. You know, I don't know if that makes sense or if you agree with that take, but that's kind of the way I look at some of the trading or some of the ways to make up a little margin in a sale or a trade situation.
Yeah. I guess at the end of the day, if you're trying to trade something to someone, especially a store, as long as the value you're offering them is more than what you're into the cards for, then you've won. So I love being able to go into a shop and say, hey, I have comped every card out. The value comes out to X. I'm looking for this amount of trade value. And the sweet spot I usually try to hit is like 80%. Because as a shop, you're getting all this stuff at 80% trade value. Trading for a card you're probably into for a good, they're probably already into for a good price. That's their version of compound interest. And if I could offer them 80% value trade, knowing that I'm into it for less than that, then everyone in this situation is going to win. And that's basically how I fluff and stuff.
Yeah. And my version is kind of from the perspective of what I just laid out is more like doing deals online, Instagram, Facebook, and stuff like that. Whereas you, Craig, have more of an opportunity to do the fluff and stuff because you're doing more in-person deals and have a better relationship with your local card shops as well. So that's a testament to the relationship that you've built up, that somebody like Jake from Bleecker will sit down with you at the National and allow you to trade 14 cards for one and really take the time to work something out with you. So I think the relationship building part is important too in this whole thing, because the patience required sometimes takes a little bit to work out a fluff and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So that's my guide to a fluff and stuff.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah. Anything else?
I appreciate you sharing that, letting me and then letting me share a little bit of, you know, how I try to go about creating those little margins, because it's not like there's not like a lottery jackpot. It's just like small little, you know, edges, and slowly with patience, you know, trying to make a little margin here and there.
Yeah, and like I plan to keep this Jim Thorpe, but it is nice knowing you're into it at a good enough price that if I do want to move it, I'll make my margins, and because of the good price I'm into it at, I'll be able to give a friend a decent deal while still making my profit. So everyone would be happy.
Yeah, it's always good to, whether you're getting a PC card for a better value or getting your inventory for a better value, that's always good. So you're headed to Greece with your wife.
Yeah.
So we're recording this a little bit ahead of time. Are you trying to find, I know the Greek,
I will get a card in Greece.
You will get a,
I will find a way to get a card in Greece. You could book that
card in Greece. That's
you could book it.
Are you doing a guarantee? Is that a CCC Crosstown Cardboard commitment for you?
I will come back home from Greece with a new card.
So yes, you're committing to that right now.
Yes.
Wow.
I'm not gonna seek out a shop. I'm gonna be way too busy enjoying the water, enjoying the views, sipping a little vino with my wife. We will not be seeking out card shops. I just have a feeling somewhere in our travels, a trading card will come across my radar.
I'm like envisioning you like along the coast, like sipping some wine, and then the gust of wind comes up and a card like sticks its way right into your gyro, and all of a sudden it's like serendipitous. You get a new Giannis Antetokounmpo patch.
Listen, the hobby gods have an interesting way of working, so we shall see.
Okay. I'm interested of your faith in the hobby god. Well, Greek has a lot of mythology. There might be a god of sports cards.
There is.
Oh, there is. Oh, okay. You've done your research.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm interested to see how this card's going to come back to you. If you're not seeking out a card shop, I'm interested how this is going to happen.
It'll happen.
Okay. Wow.
Okay.
Sound like you're in vacation mode already. You're already good for you, bro.
I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Okay. Safe trip. Enjoy.
Peace.